Okay guys, thanks a lot for coming today. Yeah, it's my pleasure to come here and talk to you about better decision making, a topic that I'm super excited and very passionate about. Just a quick introduction about myself. Okay, guys. Settle in. So currently I'm a product management lead at eBay. My team is primarily responsible for growing eBay using emails and push notifications. Prior to that, I was a product manager at Amazon Web Services. I used to manage their software marketplace. And before that, I founded my own startup, which was also an online marketplace, but for farmers based in India. And I ran that for about 4 years before moving on to Amazon. And in my past life, I also coded at a couple of startups. In terms of my experience, I can say that I'm not an expert in decision making. I think I've just been lucky enough to be exposed to various environments various tough environments where I've had to make very tough decisions. And I've been exposed to situations where I've had to come up with business strategies or raise funding for my startup or hire a bunch of employees, let go of certain employees, figure out what customers to target, what businesses to shut down. So I think much of this talk is going to be based on the learnings that I have had while making these decisions. And hopefully some of my learnings will help you guys as well to make better decisions. Now that you know me, let's dive a bit into the agenda. So we'll firstly talk about how is decision making relevant to product management, and we'll go through a few examples of decisions that product managers make. Much of my conversation today is going to be focused on something what I like to call as a very serious decision-making framework, which is basically a structure that I like to use to make a lot of my decisions. And I'll walk you guys through that framework today. As a product manager, you obviously don't have anybody directly reporting to you, so much of the work that you get done is by influence. And that's why you need to get buy-in on your decisions that you make, get people motivated and get behind your decisions just so that you can deliver what you plan to deliver. Lastly, we'll also talk about how you can use this framework to evaluate others' decisions as well. There are some readings at the end if you are super serious about improving your decision making. I think those are some really good books that I'll refer. Moving on, so let's jump into this. So what's the importance of decision making for product managers? So firstly, product managers, as most of you would already know, are like CEOs of their products. They end up making decisions day in, day out regarding who their customers are, what kind of features should we launch, what kind of features should we stop. So there's decision making, I would say, is pretty much the job description of a product manager or any leader, where the quality of a product manager is known by the quality of their decision making. And that's why I think as product managers, to focus on how you make decisions, how you explain your decisions becomes extremely critical. Product manager decisions are very difficult, simply because many a times they are very ambiguous. There's not enough data, there's a lot of uncertainty, and not everyone is comfortable making decisions in an ambiguous situation. But product managers have to make a lot of ambiguous decisions in quick time. And lastly, much of the product management decisions have a huge impact on pretty much everyone, including customers, the various stakeholders of the company, a lot of the internal folks as well, like engineers. Say for example, in my role, if we end up sending, say, a push notification in the middle of the night, we can wake up millions of customers. Or if, say, you are a product manager at a ride-sharing company and you kind of like decide not to show the arrival time of your car, that can cause anxiety like millions of customers all across the globe, right? So yeah, like there's a lot of power involved, and every decision needs to be evaluated with a good bit of detail. And like these are like some of the examples of decisions product managers make. So we make decisions based on which customers to focus on, what problems to solve, what's the long-term strategy, what hypothesis you should go test out, how should you price your product, like when is your feature good enough to release to the masses. So yeah, I mean like as a product manager you end up making these kind of decisions pretty much on a daily basis, and yeah, that's why I think like as product managers, just to improve on your decision making skills is kind of the biggest thing you can do in terms of your career growth and your skill growth. Let me pause here a bit just to, if there are any questions about the relevancy of decision making to product management, why this talk makes is kind of relevant. Does it resonate with you? Like, do you have any questions on this?
I think that should you release good enough to collect more data sooner, that definitely resonates with me.
Yeah, they're very on point.
Yeah.
Okay. Feel free to pause me if you have any questions about anything. So let's dive into something what I call as the decision-making framework. It's mainly like these are the 6 steps of that framework, and my goal here is to kind of like put a structure to every decision that at least I make, and hopefully you can use the structure to make some of your decisions as well. And this is not meant to be an exhaustive process for decision making. So you could apply this framework like for like small decisions, like even decisions that take like 5-10 minutes to make one, or some decisions which might be very ambiguous. For example, what customers to focus on, that might take a week or two to like collect all data and then make a decision. So you can apply it to either of them. I think the rigor would differ based on like the risk of the decision and the risk and the impact of the decision that you're trying to make. The more risky and the more impactful, maybe you want to spend a bit more time getting into the details. Also, like I mean, you make decisions in your personal life as well. So maybe you can use that framework for your personal decisions as well. And some of the examples that I will use today would be personal. Not personal to me, but decisions that people make in their personal life. And then within each of these steps, like my objective today is not to kind of bore you with an exhaustive list of tips within each of these steps. What I've tried to do is highlight just 1 or 2 key tips in each of these steps, so that you can actually start implementing it. So let's jump into this, and the very first step is structuring the problem. So if you have like a decent solution to a well-defined problem, that's always much better than having like a perfect solution for an ill-defined problem. And one of the biggest flaws or mistakes that people make while structuring the problem is something called as narrow framing, which basically means that the question is structured in a way which says that should you do this or not. And many of our questions in our daily life are actually structured in this manner. And whenever you see a question framed in this manner, like alarm bells should set off in your head, because of narrow framing, what it does is it makes you choose between one of these 2 options here, and it kind of blocks your thinking in terms of generating more innovative solutions and options. And the way to avoid narrow framing is something called as ask the whys, which is basically you ask a few whys and try to get to the real problem that you're trying to solve. So let me give a few examples to help explain this better, what I mean by narrow framing and how to resolve it. So this is actually a true story. Like, one of my colleagues came up to me and he's like, "Hey Nishan, should I buy a Toyota or a Honda car?" And me being a decision-making freak, like the alarm bell went up in my head. And this is narrow framing. He's asking me to choose between two specific options. So I asked him, like, why do you want to buy a car? And he's like, so that I can reduce my travel time to work. And I dug in a bit more. Why do you want to reduce your travel time to work? And he's like, so that I can find more time to exercise. So what happened here was we pivoted the problem statement from should he buy a Toyota or a Honda car to how should he find more time to exercise. And based on this problem statement, our options looked very different. So we started talking about options which were like, should he reduce time that he says spends watching television? Should he reduce time that he sleeps and use that to exercise? Or should he actually reduce his travel time to work? And if he wants to reduce his travel time to work, there are like different options he can explore. He can maybe ride a bike to work, maybe he can jog to work, maybe he can take public transport, maybe he can carpool. And then he can go evaluate all of these options before really narrowing down on maybe a car, and then within the car, which car to actually purchase. So yeah, as you can see, if once we broaden the scope of the problem, you could think of a lot more innovative solutions here. Just another example on the same point, because I think like this is like the biggest mistake most folks make while decision making, is just structuring the problem wrong. And as a product manager, like this is a very common problem which pretty much all product managers in technology companies face, whereby you have some features running on an old platform which become obsolete now, and then like somebody someday asks the question, should we migrate to the new platform or not? And like if you ask like in this specific use case, like for this product manager, like if you ask like why they want to migrate to the new platform, the response was that so that they can iterate faster on future features. On digging more, if you ask like why do you want to iterate faster on future features, it's basically to convert users faster. And we kind of like pivoted from like the platform migration question to how can we convert users better. And once you like pivot the question, then like the solutions and the options look very different, right? Maybe this product manager can prioritize launching some new features to convert users better, or maybe there is no need to migrate. Like maybe we can deprecate the current solution and build something from scratch on a new platform itself, which might help convert users better. So as you can see, like if you restructure the problem in this manner, like you can help generate more innovative solutions to the actual problem that you're trying to solve. One of the questions that you might be wondering about is like when do you stop asking why? Because like, and then typically if you read some of the decision making books, they will talk about asking the 5 whys. But in my personal experience, like once you get to like 5 whys, like you pretty much end up being like you're doing this in the pursuit of happiness, and that kind of doesn't make sense. And as a product manager, like say just for this specific example, you also need to look at what is your area of scope and ownership and your goals as well. So for example, in this use case, maybe the product manager's team scope was to actually iterate faster on features and improve the experimentation velocity. So maybe they could have stopped at just the first question, and the problem statement would have looked like, how can we iterate faster on future features? And the same thing in the previous example here, like maybe I could have dug in a bit more deeper, saying that why does my friend need to find more time to exercise? and maybe his response would be that so that he can lead a healthy life. And then the options would look a bit more different, right? Maybe he could improve his eating habits or his stress levels, and then the solution would look very different based on the problem you're trying to solve. So yeah, that's pretty much narrow framing and how to avoid it. Do you guys have any questions on this step? Okay, let's keep moving. So now that you've structured the problem correctly, you need to clarify the decision maker. And this seems very obvious, but especially in large companies, it's not very obvious. Generally, as a product manager, my general recommendation is that you are the default decision maker for all questions related to your product. You guys would have noticed, especially in large companies, often the decision maker is ambiguous. And you sit in a meeting where everybody gives their opinion about a particular problem, but nobody's really making a decision there. And this happens way more often than you would like it to. And as a product manager, there are certain things you can do about it. Let's take an example of a product manager who is responsible for the ads that get shown on, say, an e-commerce website. And this product manager's product is basically they show ads from third-party websites on their website. And let's say there is another product manager who owns the product detail page for that website, which is basically where all the product details appear. And the ads product manager wants to put certain kind of ads on the product detail page, and also wants to iterate on them and try various options. So who is the decision maker on this? Is it the ads PM who decides whether he should put ads on which pages, or whether it's the product detail product manager who decides what ads can go on my page? To resolve this, there can be a lot of churn if you don't structure this properly. The way it such kind of dependencies, resolving such kind of dependencies has worked for me is kind of set some guardrails and align on certain goals. And once those are set up, then each product manager can iterate fast on the goals and the features that they are responsible for. So in this example, probably the ads product manager and the product detail product manager, if they agree, say ads are okay on that on the product detail page, as long as it doesn't drive down the product details conversion rate. And once they have that agreement, then the ads PM can keep iterating on what ad units to show, from which advertisers, what should be the types of ads shown, while the product detail PM can focus on decisions regarding other aspects of the product detail page. So yeah, clarifying the decision maker is extremely important, and if you're laying down a document for your decisions, I typically like to call out who the decision maker is and make it as explicit as possible. So are there any questions on this one? Go ahead.
Is it the organization goal, like the customer should be the goal for both the product managers in that case?
So,
the end goal should be common for both of them?
So this kind of ambiguity usually arises when the goals do not align. If the goals align, then it's a very easy discussion. But more often than not, goals do not align, and that's when you have to try to resolve it in some manner.
So looking at the end goal, should that end goal reduce the ambiguity, and should it help the discussion between the two product managers in how they are actually resolved?
If I understand your question, so the end goal is yes, helping make a better product for the end customer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
but the ads team might have like very different goals. Ads like usually don't add value to the customer, but they're still important to the business. So their goals are very different from say the product detail PM here. So like the way like as I suggested it works for me is like set some guardrails, align on certain goals and parameters on which each team can iterate and make decisions on their own, and that's how you can move fast.
I have a question.
Sure.
So if let's say your web app is on V1 version, and you tend to have like technological advancements on it and make it V2, but some other team is like you are clearly the decision maker, but some other team is trying to add take some real estate from your web app and add some features to it, which are dependent on V1. Let's say it's an A/B test or something, and cannot go to V2. And it's gonna delay you. So how do you make that decision that okay, should I delay my product, my V2 launch, or should I wait for them to complete their testing and everything, so that and after that they can make a decision to just like upgrade their feature.
So it depends on who the decision maker is in this case, right? Is it like because maybe it's your product, you are the decision maker, and you can prioritize whether this adds value to your product or not. The other team that you're referring to might think that they are the decision maker and they have full freedom to release whatever they want in your product. So it's exactly the same example that I mentioned. Like try to have a conversation with them and align on certain guardrails there. If not, like you might need to escalate and get like your leaders to talk and like get to an agreement on how to structure this. But the core point is that you need to clarify who the decision maker is once and for all. Just so that like this is just one instance that you're facing this, right? Even though you go and resolve this after a lot of churn, the same problem will come to you maybe in a month. And that's gonna cause the same amount of churn. So try to clarify who the decision maker is for now and for future.
So do you have like, let's say I'm clearly the decision maker over here, do you have like some parameters on which I should decide that, okay, do I wait for the other team or not?
So I think like hold on to that thought, like once you walk through the framework, like you might get some more ideas to like figure out what parameters to think about. Okay, let's keep moving here. So you structured the problem, you know who the decision maker is, and now you need to like prioritize goals, or in other words criteria. The suggestions that I have here is like just ensure you lay down all your goals, which are basically your laundry list of all the wants that you have, and just ensure they are smart, like which is basically specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time bound. And once you lay down all your wants, like try to prioritize and keep up to only the top 3 or 5 goals that you have, which are pretty much your table stakes, without which you cannot make a decision. And like the reason is because like the more goals and criteria you have, the difficult it will be for you to find relevant options that fulfill all your criteria. Let's look at an example to understand this better. So this is a story about a couple who are looking to purchase a house, and they have laid down all the wants that they have, and it's kind of like overwhelming, where like they're saying like they need at least 3 bedrooms, they need a front yard, backyard within an hour of travel to work, need to have gas cooking range, need sunlight coming in the house. So based on all of these criteria, if they try looking for houses, they might not find relevant houses, or even if they find some options, say a house kind of like fulfills the criteria of having a front yard, maybe school district rating greater than 8, and like has some sunlight, they would not know if these are the most important and these are the things that really matter to them in making this decision. So it kind of leads to a lot of confusion. But if they kind of prioritize this and maybe say just come up with like a small set of goals and criteria that matter to them. So like in this case, this couple came up with like a couple of criteria, like the house needs to be an hour, within an hour of travel to work, and secondly the return on investment, which is basically the price should appreciate by about 10% the next 3 years. And once they laid down these two criteria, they were able to quickly narrow down to a neighborhood, and then like within that neighborhood, like find some relevant options and like which may or may not fit all the wants that they have. So yeah, like I mean the core point here is like lay down all the goals and criteria you have, but stick to like the top 3 to 5 goals while deciding which option to select. Now that you know your goals, like let's look at like how do you generate options. So for options, the general theme here is the more options you have, the better. I'm just going to suggest a couple of ideas to generate more options. So one of the ways that I use a lot is you always have some favored option. So for example, in the previous example where this friend of mine wanted to buy a car, that was already a favored option for him. So the first suggestion here is kind of like eliminate what your favored option was. And let's say my friend cannot buy a car, and what that pushes him to do is think about other alternatives and other options that can help achieve the same goals that he's trying to achieve. And this is, even in your product life, you can use this suggestion to like generate more and more options all the time. The second suggestion here is like check out what others have done. Like so, if you work for an e-commerce company, check out what other sites are trying. Check some other similar businesses also, how they've structured and what kind of solutions they have tried to the problem that you have. And that might help you get some ideas. So, are there any questions on how do you set the goals and how do you generate options? Go ahead.
I haven't tried option A yet, but in your experience, do you see that a lot of the favorite options end up being the best option, or more often than not, that's just kind of the first thing that came to their mind?
So it depends, right? But what you're talking about is a bias that a lot of us have, right? Like where maybe we came up with that idea and that was the first idea that came to us, and we just become more invested in that option, and that kind of leads us to believe that this is the best option, and we stop looking at objectively at other options. Right. So like to your question, like I don't know whether that first option always works out to be the best option, maybe at times, but I would recommend not kind of taking the first option and assuming it to be the best option.
So that's more about gearing towards limiting the bias.
Exactly. Right. So what I would do is like eliminate, like imagine the first option did not exist, and then you would think about more options that you can then go objectively evaluate.
Makes sense.
But should we not go with our instincts in some cases, because sometimes that could be the good option, right?
You asked a good question. So a lot of the decision making happens via gut, yeah. And that's like an absolutely no in product management. And that's kind of the structure is the structure that I'm proposing is actually to control making decisions via instincts and try to structure them and try to move from subjective decision making to a lot more objective decision making. So yeah, like an absolutely no. Like yes, like I mean it's like in product decisions, obviously decisions are ambiguous and like not everything is black and white, right? So sometimes after doing some analysis, you need to go with your instincts or based on your past experience, but not right off the bat. Okay. So now that we've generated the options, it's time to evaluate each option. And to evaluate each option, yes, you need to go collect data about each option. There are various ways, as you guys might already know, to collect data regarding the options. You can look at past customer data. You can look at data from, say, your competitors. You can even go interview a few customers. You can survey them. So there are various ways in which you can collect data to for each of the options that you have, and that's kind of a separate topic in itself. So I will not go much deeper into it. Once you have the data, my suggestion is to lay down a simple pros and cons for each option. Just ensure that they align with the goals that you set out for. So in that house buying example, their goals were to ensure that their house is within an hour of travel to work, and the second criteria they had was just the return on investment. So their pros would just focus on those two goals that they had. So pro would look like this is within an hour of travel to work, and the con might look like but the return on investment on this property might not be good enough. So just focus on those goals, and that will help you lay down pros and cons quite quickly. The other suggestion here is an absolute no is don't consider sunk cost in your pros and cons for options. So for example, in that platform migration example, let's assume that the platform migration project is a 1-year-long project, and your developers have already invested 6 months of their effort in migrating to the new platform, and at the 6-month period you are reevaluating the decision. So just because your developers have put in 6 months of effort into migration does not mean that 6 months into the project that is still a good decision. So the sunk cost should not matter in your future decision making. The other thing that I think you should strongly do in your pros and cons is try to separate out the facts from fiction, because you will have some hard data backing each of the options, but you will also have some assumptions that I believe you should call out very, very explicitly. So for example, one of the common ways to evaluate options in product management is, say you're considering a couple of features, and say feature A is going to generate $10 million in revenue and feature B is going to generate $50 million in revenue. And if you just lay down those numbers in that manner, firstly you might fool yourself to believe that feature A will actually go and generate $10 million and feature B will actually go and generate $50 million. At the end of the day, these numbers are guesstimates and would have been made based on certain assumptions, maybe of conversion rate, maybe of the traffic that your product might receive. So the suggestion here is to call out assuming that call out your assumptions. So you should say something like, assuming that the conversion rate was X and the traffic to site was Y, we believe this would be about $10 million. And this makes sense to the reader as well, right? Because then the reader kind of gets a bit more confidence in the numbers and the estimate that you made. Otherwise, if you just present them that this is going to make 10 million and this is going to make 50 million, either they are going to assume that these are exact figures and you are going to hit those numbers, or they are going to have no faith in your numbers and are going to just disregard your numbers. So just call out your assumptions. And the last thing here is call out the risk as well as the mitigation for each of the risk and each of the options. One mistake that I often see people doing in their options is kind of people call out the risk that this is risky because for whatever reason, and they lay down 10 risks, and you would lay down because you have biases, you would lay down more risk for options that you do not favor. But what people don't do is put together some mitigation for that risk as well. And usually the mitigation is quite straightforward and does not involve a lot of effort. So my suggestion is to put down risk as well as lay down some mitigation for it. So yeah, this is this is how I recommend evaluating each option. And then finally, once you come to deciding on an option, so you've done all the homework, you've gone through, like, structured the problem well, you know who the decision maker is, you've laid down all the criteria, you've generated your options, you've evaluated each option. But now when the time comes to make a decision, most of the decisions fail in this, and a lot of the decision making books and the research around decision making, if you see, focuses on biases, and which is basically you do all this homework and then you choose to ignore it just because your irrational mind comes into play, and because maybe you already had a favored option, so you just look at facts supporting that option and ignore kind of everything else. Or maybe your VP suggested an option, and just because the VP suggested you that option becomes a lot more favorable, even though the data does not back that option. So and then there are various kinds of like biases, like you mentioned, like you thought about an idea first, or whatever option came first. You kind of like base or compare all other options versus the first option, which kind of creates a bias in how you objectively evaluate each option. So yeah, like if you just want to learn about your irrational biases, and all of us have it, like even if you deny it, there's a lot of reading material on it, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. And lastly, like as product managers, I think like we all need to realize it's okay to make the wrong decision, because at the end of the day, all decisions that we make are basically predictions about the future based on current data and assumptions. And I see a lot of young product managers struggling to make decisions. So they spend like hours and weeks and trying to collect as much data, trying to make that perfect decision. But more often than not, it's not really worth it. A lot of, especially in tech, like you can make quick decisions. You can validate your hypothesis quickly, and you can reverse your decisions also quickly. So based on the risk of the decision, like figure out how much rigor you want to put in the process and collecting data, and but yeah, don't kind of spin cycles and like spend ages to make decisions. So yeah, guys, like this is basically the framework that I wanted to introduce to you guys. And you guys can like figure out how to use it and for what kind of decision at what rigor. Before we go to questions, I want to cover a couple of more topics on how to use this framework as product managers. So one of the key things is to get buy-in on the decisions that you make, just so that you can motivate your engineers, your leadership, your partner teams to work along with the decision that you made. So the way to like align people and what has usually worked for me is like, I think people do not agree to your decision if they don't agree that the problem that is being solved is right, or they don't agree on the criteria or the goals based on which the decision is being made. More often than not, you hear people debating about options, but it's not really the options that they disagree on, it's the goals and the problem statement itself. So like if somebody comes and tells you that, hey, this is a bad option and I don't agree with it, ask them why do they not agree, and ask them if explicitly if they align with the goals and the problem statement that you laid out in the first place. And you can pretty much use the framework that I proposed to kind of publicize and get buy-in on your decisions. So, and then you could, like if you want, you can document all of these steps while making a decision, and like take it to folks whom you need to convince, and show them like how you went about making this decision. So that might help get buy-in from them quickly. Like some other folks like might consume information in different manner. Like some people like to be presented to using a slide deck. So maybe just put down your entire decision making process in these steps and present it to them using a slide deck. For others, like I mean, people might just like to think aloud and not really are good listeners or good readers, but you still need to convince them. For them, like usually what has worked is you ask probing questions which kind of align with your thinking and the framework that we walk through. So if they come and suggest that I think that all of your options are crap and this option is the best, so ask them like, why is this option the best? Like, what criteria are you, what problem are you trying to solve? What's the criteria you're using to base this recommendation? So you can use this framework and like try to get buy-in from them based on asking questions based on this framework. And the very last thing here, guys, so you can use this framework to critique others' decisions as well. So as product managers, you like different product managers come to you with decisions that they made. They come for either feedback or they come to get buy-in from you so that you can go support them in delivering that feature or decision. And you can use like exactly the same framework and ask these exact same questions in that structure to get more clarity whether this decision makes sense or not. You can ask them whether the right problem is being solved. If they come with a narrow frame problem to you, ask them why, ask them the whys, right, to get clarity on the exact problem they're trying to solve. Ensure that the goals are clear, check whether enough options were explored. If there are if there are only 2 options, then kind of get them to think about more options. Ensure that you're kind of separating the facts from fiction while evaluating the pros and cons. And lastly, also look at the biases, if there are any major biases influencing the decision that the person is making. So these are some of the readings that I think these are some of the top books in decision making. I've read through all of them, and most of these books focus on the very last step, which are the biases, and they are very valuable. So if you're interested in diving deeper and improving your decision making skills, I would strongly advise you to take a read. So yeah, that's pretty much the summary of what we discussed today.